Hi, folks. Welcome to today's webinar from Bob Benny Wealth Management. Actually, this isn't a webinar. We're now calling it a podcast, right? Because podcasts are cool.
Sure.
We want to be cool. So anyway, today's webinar topic or podcast topic, I'm just going to take a while. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the 3 rules of building wealth. And kind of a background to this, how we decided to come about this topic is I've been doing this for 27 years. Jesse's been in our business in this business for 8 years, been here for almost 3. 4. Time flies. Anyway, and there are some common themes that we've noticed with people, that the clients that we have that are wealthy, the wealthier ones. We help everybody, whether they're real wealthy or not so wealthy, but there's common themes with the wealthy ones, commonality, so to speak, unspoken rules of building wealth.
And a lot of these are going to sound kind of common sense or simple, but they're not easy, or else everyone would be wealthy. So
can I interrupt just one second? We also have a special surprise at the end of the webinar, so you'll want to
stay tuned.
You'll want to stay tuned through the whole thing.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Rule number 1 is to spend less than you make.
So part of this comes from Grandpa Peachy. What's the matter?
Hang on. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Don't turn it off.
Technical difficulties. You
You
can go ahead and do it.
So my grandpa, my dad's dad, and Jesse's great grandpa, his name was Peachy. His real name was Lester. I probably should have had a picture of Grandpa Peachy on here, but anyway, Grandpa Peachy, he got the name Peachy. He was poor when he grew up. I mean, really poor. And him and another kid were at a neighbor stealing peaches because they were hungry. And Grandpa Peachy and the other kid got caught by the farmer they were stealing the peaches from. And there you go. Rule number 1, spend less than you make. So anyway, Grandpa Peachy got caught stealing peaches. The farmer that caught him stealing his peaches spanked him and the other boy, and then sent them home with a bushel basket of peaches. And so that's how my Grandpa Peachy got the name Peachy, which is a lot cooler name than Lester. Sorry for any of you Lesters out there, but anyway, so Grandpa Peachy, as he was getting older, he decided he was just the most fantastic grandpa. Jesse never got to know him. He was the perfect grandpa. A grandkid could do no wrong with Grandpa Peachy. He just loved us unconditionally, always. But as he got older, he got really even cuter, because he decided he needed to impart wisdom on us. And he told me multiple times that what he would say is, Bobby, it doesn't matter how much you make. What matters is how much you spend. And so rule number 1 is spend less than you make.
And a good rule of thumb for people as far as savings go and retirement savings, kind of the CFP rule of thumb is to make sure that you're saving 10% of your income at least for retirement. And so, for example, if you have a 401k, that 10% is how much you're contributing to the 401k, not including your employer's match. An example of what this can do and how this works in retirement and how this kind of wealth can compound is, I'm 31. So if someone started, once they turned 30, said, man, I better start thinking about retirement, I think I'm just going to start contributing to an IRA, the maximum amount to an IRA. Say they didn't have a 401k or something like that, which is $6,000. If they started putting $6,000 every year into their IRA starting at age 30, by age 65, they would be a millionaire if they had invested that money in something like the S&P 500 index, just because of the compounded interest in addition to the savings. So it can go a long way.
Yeah. And, we try to advise our younger clients or their kids when they send them into us is to start right away as soon as you start working. after high school or after college, start saving some, and with the goal of getting as soon as you can to saving 10% of your income. If you think about it too, you know, it helps both ways. You're living below your means, and that 10% that you're saving, that's compounding for your retirement. It helps two ways. And the other thing about this, spending less than you make, is one of the things we've noticed on our wealthier clients is they don't live high on the hog. They're semi-frugal, not really super tight, but they're frugal. They do things like they don't usually buy brand new cars. And they sure don't buy a brand new car every year. They'll buy a car and drive it for quite a while. They don't eat out all the time. They like to buy things on sale, and they price shop for the things they're buying, especially big things. And then they don't drink their money.
Meaning like we're thinking about expensive drinks like coffees every day.
Yeah, like the foo-foo coffees,
things like that. Just it's a lot of little things that people don't think about that can add up.
And they don't think of themselves as wealthy, even though maybe now they're wealthy, maybe they weren't before. They're living below their means and spending less than they make.
And another thing that I've noticed in going along with the not getting a new car every few years thing is a lot of them live in houses that they lived in before they were millionaires.
Yeah.
You know, they don't buy the newest, biggest house.
Yeah, there's a book we were talking about that called The Millionaire Next Door. And it kind of has it in the title of the book that a lot of times millionaires, you wouldn't know they're millionaires. Mm-hmm. Because they're not braggers, they're not boastful, they don't live beyond their means or anything like that.
And it's not, a lot of times it's not the people that you would think. So it's not somebody that climbed a corporate ladder or is an entrepreneur or something like that. It's people that maybe don't make a super high income, but they save more of it than they spend.
You know, I used to live in a neighborhood that had a lot of pretty fancy houses, nice houses. We had the cheapest house in the neighborhood, and we had a lot of neighbors that made a lot of money, and they spent a lot more than they made even, and they didn't have a lot of actual wealth, because they spent more than they made. They always had the newest cars and all that sort of stuff.
So they're financing things, so they're just paying off.
So rule number 2, Jess.
Okay.
Let's see if we can
Pray
share
for me
this.
This works.
Dang it, didn't work.
Hang on, this all worked just literally 30 minutes ago when I was testing this out.
But anyway, rule number 2. That's rule number 3. Whoa,
don't look.
Oh my goodness. Maybe we should just tell them.
Go ahead and tell them what rule number 2 is.
Rule number 2 is invest your savings wisely. There it is. We're technological geniuses here, but it's okay. Invest your savings wisely. So some kind of wise things, for instance, is that fixed investments like CDs and bonds, they don't stay ahead of inflation. Now, you know, for the past decades, we haven't worried too much about inflation, but everybody's worried about it now. Everybody that buys anything's worried about inflation, and it's bad. And I'm not usually supposed to we're not supposed to use the word guarantee in our business, but I can guarantee you that this inflation is going to get bad and stay bad for a while because of all the money that the government has printed. So fixed investments don't stay ahead of inflation. In general, I mean, inflation goes up and then they raise the interest rates like this. I only remember one client ever that had fixed investments and he stayed ahead of inflation. What happened was this guy in the early 80s, when inflation was at its peak and interest rates got to their peak, he bought 30-year United States Treasury bonds and put his money in them, locked the fixed interest rate, guaranteed interest rate from the government in at 12%, and then inflation went down, and so he beat inflation the rest of his life. He passed away along
With a
some
completely
time ago.
risk-free.
Yeah,
investment.
so that may be something to do down the road, but it's certainly not anything to do right now. Is to be invested in fixed investments like CDs and bonds. And in general, that's not a good thing.
Kind of, I just want to say, kind of on that same note, the rule is invest your savings wisely, not save your money and stash it away somewhere in the bank and do nothing with it, because it's also going to be losing, you're going to be losing buying power
Correct.
from inflation.
Correct.
Doing that as well.
And then another point along this line of investing savings wisely is to diversify your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put, don't bet the farm on something. Don't find any individual's company or stock. Don't just go put all your money in one stock. Be diversified. Be diversified across companies, across different asset classes, that sort of thing. And then the next is, in investing wisely, is to think long term, because it is long term. This money, to grow your wealth over time, you got to have a long term outlook. It's not a sprint, it's more like a marathon.
Go ahead with what you were going to say.
Well, and just, to take on the appropriate level of risk that you can tolerate. And we can help you. We have a great tool called Riskalyze that is very different than anything you've ever seen, that will give you a risk number from 1 to 100. And we'll know how much, and you'll know just how much risk you can accept and volatility that you can accept.
And we've talked about this before on other webinars, but just kind of as a reminder, the longer you stay invested in the market, the greater your chances are to come out with a positive return. So for example, using the S&P 500, if you're invested in the S&P 500 for 1 year, there's a 74% chance that you're going to come out with a positive return. Whereas if you invest
Which
in
is
S&P,
still pretty good.
Yeah. But if you invest in the S&P 500 for 10 years, there's like a 94% chance that you're going to come out with a positive return. It's almost 100%. So the longer you stay invested, the better.
And then finally, stay the course and don't panic. A study was done comparing the hypothetical returns of a 60-40 portfolio, meaning 60% stocks, 40% bonds, made up of the S&P 500 and the S&P U.S. bond index, between the 1st of January of 2020, January 1, 2020, and 2 years later, December 31st, 2021. And remember, there was this 5-week period between in February and March, 5-week period in February or March of 2020, when everybody got scared the dickens out of COVID by the news media and the government. 5 weeks, the S&P 500 went down 31%. And that's because some people were panicking and selling. And some people sold at the bottom. None of our clients sold at the bottom. We talked them out of it, fortunately. But there were people that sold. So go ahead and tell them what happened.
Okay, so they compared 3 different scenarios. So the first scenario, the investor would have stayed invested the entire time. They never sold, they just stayed put. Okay, so they would have made 33% on their investment over that amount of time. The second scenario is an investor who got out in March of 2020. That's when the market was going down so much. There was a day or two that the New York Stock Exchange had to halt trading because it dropped so much. So they panicked during that time and they got out, and then they didn't get back in until about the end of June of 2020, when things had kind of started to be a little bit more comfortable and gone up a little bit. They would have only made 7% in that 2-year span on their investment. And even worse, the third scenario is somebody who also got out and went to cash in March of 2020, but they waited and didn't get in until they were comfortable at the end of December of 2020. And in the 2-year period of 2020 and 2021, they actually would have lost 6%. So not panicking and staying the course is another thing that wise long-term investors know to do.
And finally, value expert advice. Don't do it yourself. And there was a study done on this too, Jess.
Know I'm all about the studies.
Yeah.
So
before you tell them about the study, I'll just give an example of like automobiles. When I was a kid, when I was younger and didn't have any money, and cars were quite a bit simpler, I always had a pickup truck, and I used to work on it myself because I didn't have any money. Now, I wasn't as good as a professional mechanic and that sort of thing, but I got it done. But I'm so much better off now. If I have an issue with my vehicle, I take it to a professional mechanic that I can trust, that's competent and trustworthy, and he can fix it much better and faster, and it's well worth the money to pay him to fix it than as long as it's going to take me to fix it, and the mistakes I'm going to make, and the tools I might have to buy or rent, et cetera, et cetera. So same concept goes with financial advisors. A good, competent, trustworthy financial advisor. Now you can tell them about your study.
So the study basically looked at the different services that a good financial advisor provides, and they came up with the valuation for them. And basically the valuation ended up being about 5% as a fee. So basically they said a financial advisor's advice is worth 5%, but many financial advisors charge, including us, charge way less than that.
And like around 1%.
Around 1%. So for the things that financial advisors provide that are worth a lot are: one, active portfolio management, behavioral coaching. So when somebody calls and is panicking and saying, I want to get out of the market, the sky is falling, what do I do? Let's get out, let's go to cash. And we can be a source of kind of rational advice to say, I think we're okay, you know, let's stay in.
Right. Or behavioral coaching from the standpoint of how much money you need to save in order to reach this goal of retirement.
Yeah. Or spending.
Right.
You know, what spending is like. Customized wealth planning, as far as like planning for retirement, planning for certain goals, things like that. And then lastly, tax optimization. So those are all things that a financial advisor can provide that most people don't have the knowledge or experience to do on their own.
Right. And then our rule number 3, if Jesse can get it up on the screen this time, we'll see.
Oh my gosh.
Didn't work again. Rule number 3 is our wealthiest clients don't worship money. And that's, you getting it now? Anyway, our wealthiest clients don't worship money. And where I brought this as a visual aid. Here's a visual aid. This is my Bible. And the Bible is the source of all truth. And in the Bible, money is mentioned in the Bible more than 2,000 times. I think it's the second most mentioned topic in the Bible is money. And Jesus taught about, in the New Testament, Jesus taught about money in 11 out of his 39 parables. So it must be pretty important. It was obviously, he knew it's always been important to people, is money. But just some Bible verses that we put together are, did you want to show those, or you're not going to try to show them? This will be a fiasco too, probably, but we'll try this. Anyway, we're going to share this screen. The first Bible verse comes from Matthew in the New Testament, Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. And it says, and this is Jesus speaking, he says, no one can serve 2 masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And our experience with our wealthiest clients is they don't worship money. then another one a little bit later in Matthew, verse 33, Matthew 6:33 says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well.
And in that, it's talking about, it's going through the, do not worry. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. Don't worry about what you're going to wear. Look at how God takes care of the flowers of the fields, and look at how he takes care of the birds of the air. Don't you think that he'll take so much better care of
And he
you,
does, and he does.
someone he loves? And then the last one that we have is command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant or to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they'll lay up a treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. And I think that's what's a commonality in a lot of the people that we've worked with, is that they know they have this money and they have this wealth, but that's not where their happiness comes from. And they know that there's so much more to their life and their purpose than that. So they use money as something to steward rather than something to hoard or hold on to for themselves.
So that's about all we have, but we're going to close now for a few moments. Our 3 rules, to summarize, are spend less than you make, number 1. Like Grandpa Benny said, doesn't matter how much you make, it's how much you spend. Spend less than you make. Number 2, invest your savings wisely. And number 3, don't worship money. And so we thank everybody who's attended the webinar. I don't know if there's any questions. Does it look like there's any questions, Jess?
Right now, there's no question.
There's no questions or comments. If you have any feedback to us, any questions, you want to email jesse@bobbenny.com or bob@bobbenny.com on any kind of feedback on the webinar, or any ideas on topics for future webinars. We'd sure invite that. We just want to help you in any way we can. Help, we do a number of different things here. We help people with retirement income planning, estate planning, help people with their investments, all that sort of thing. And now, what you've all been waiting for, we have our special surprise. Here she comes. It's our newest Bob Benny Wealth Management employee. This is Hillary Saunders.
Hello.
And this is Jesse's best friend. And we've known each other for quite a while. And so Hillary is our, what is the
Client experience coordinator.
Client experience coordinator. And Hillary's middle name is fun. And that's kind of why she was hired. So anyway, you're going to get phone calls and get to know Hillary, hopefully over the next few months, and hope that you enjoy her just as much as we do. And finally, it's exciting times. We're going to have you here.
Yeah, same.
And stay here.
Okay, same. I didn't know it was like the official.
We just want to finish. And we want to just finish by saying, have a blessed day and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.